Welcome, welcome to my lovely HP community and the 5D Collective. To those who are new, we are a collective of securely attached, non-traumatized, healthy self-worth, empowered mystics, spiritual and mindfully living and loving people. So we use mindfulness mindset and mindset practices to continue expanding on being ourselves, on having well-being, on reaching objectives, and so on and so forth. And for the 5D mystics, we have a good time. And that's because there's no tragedy or drama in our lovely soul's world. Okay, but today we're talking about how you view yourself and how others may view you is not always going to match. So if you think of good and bad, which is where as kids, good and bad was black and white thinking, right? But if you're a securely attached person, so it means that your higher self consistently was able to continue leading the way, or you get your higher self back from being with a Patrick Tiahan, a good trauma therapist for childhood trauma people, and or Terry Real. Now you love yourself, you're able to be yourself, and like the 5D Collective, great. We have the capacity to be non-reactive consistently and aware, accountable and regulate. So we all will still have moods and things like that, but the difference is we interact and are able to enjoy each other, and we want to. So the part of if somebody has defined you as good or bad, but you were not trying to be a bad person, or basically you're a misunderstood person. There's so many variables we could include. I'm a mystic. I come as a mystic with clairs that I know are the same as spiritual gifts, and I know they're the same as also intuitive gifts, and that scientists look into it. There's a bunch of people in our mystic community who call people like me Luciferian or Reiki practitioners. Lo and behold, a theologian who went ahead to say that it's bad energy. Okay, so we actively have groups of people with their emotions and thoughts, thinking of them as irrefutable facts and gathering all their books and presenting to them like bricks and stones. Yeah, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. Exactly. That's how an empowered, functional child adult can tell you. Yeah, keep talking. And a person who's spiritual, who does have a relationship with God, Holy Spirit, and Jesus, will also know one thing. Your arrogance. I can see right through your teeth, because your tone will have given it all away. And no, there's no Lucifer to be blamed. Nope, there's just that thing called trauma that you're not healing, and therefore with a non-bilaterally integrated brain person, I'm just dealing with a stupid one. That's how I'm going to let you in on a fun fact. Any 3-year-old that's brokenhearted, I ain't hearing any shit that's coming out of your mouth, especially at a point of being an educated person. I'm not going to feel bad for you. Not going to be mad at you. I'm completely equanimous. Excuse me. Ain't confusing shit. Or, am I not decent enough to be saluted? Or, you want it. Why don't you give it to him? These interactions are buffoonery to me. And I actively have a good time. These people, one person's my friend. The other person I've met a couple times, and I was honored that they recognized my voice. The one who's, am I not decent enough? I'm like, wow, really? That's really awful if you feel that shitty about a person consistently letting you know, I don't want to be your friend. Okay, so when you meet insecure human beings, you're not thinking Lucifer. No, it's none of that. And when people are instead still learning how to be empowered, so this one's for, okay, so here's what an empowered, again, inner child who's a functional adult can say. Yeah, you can't shame me, because I wasn't shamed. I was taught self-respect and how to respect another. And it stayed here and here and here. And then God reiterated it, and Jesus reiterated, forgive Maria, for they do not know. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. Those are your brothers and sisters. Don't you dare. Be humble. Okay? And then as a channeler and downloader, knowing that I won't be welcomed by all because I'm a mystic. But knowing, you're not God and you're playing God. And so you're using ancient textbooks. So an empowered person with all their child parts asleep, because even if they come up, they're great. It's called non-traumatized. You're good, Maria. So this is what it feels like, what you think. When you don't think, oh my God, let me feel guilty for telling a person I didn't tell the person I didn't like them. I didn't actively interact with them at all. They're the ones who came in, and then they even think they taught me a lesson, and then I even got to hear, well, you could be more flexible. So healthy self-worth people will all be very well aware and at ease with anyone who wants to come in and chime what is none of a securely attached person's way of chiming in. That's how I'm going to pose it. So the most important element when you're in an equation, if you're empowered, you don't take offense, and you're not going to try and be the person who shows them. So you don't feel that you need to be vindicated. You don't feel wronged in such a way that you're going to hold on to that. You process thoughts and you metabolize emotions. And that's why you own the sense of self. Okay, so securely attached people don't allow themselves to carry weight around because we use our ventral energy, because we use our social engagement system, because we're using our prefrontal cortex. So when you deal with unknowns, uncertainties, unexpecteds, and people who come your way and they have not empowered functional child adults, their tone. And my body, she's really smart because that's an empowered feminine. My heart is loving, my mind has curiosity, and when I meet anyone at this point that's still their teenage version, I learned already as a teenager how I was going to interact with it. And that's the part of where the Krishna Lila, exploring the depths of the profound with playfulness and having a good time, because I am not going to play God, and I'm not going to play what those other 4D collective who think that you need them to access your higher dimensions. It's insulting. You are spiritual, and if you are spiritual and you are mystic, you will know, if you're an empowered one, that you don't need another person to access that which is something that is a part of what we all are. You'll know that someone can contribute value to your journey, and that's a very different way that you'll be approaching your spiritual journey versus the ones who are like flat earthers and their little club. They have a mask on, okay? And I'm just saying, I've heard a bunch of them say, it's thanks to my subliminal messages. Really? It's thanks to you? That's, again, you're putting yourself a bit on a pedestal. Don't you think that... Elsa, what are you doing? Show yourself. When you have the spiritual bypassers, and that's an adaptive child, when you got a teenager in the room, they're playing big. They don't embody their pure consciousness yet. So it's only when you have an integrated brain, pure consciousness, you're going to know the embodiment of the empowered feminine, the empowered masculine, and that's because they will not be casting stones. They will be sharing how discernment works and looking to expand our lovely human herd, okay, and future and so on and so forth. And so with that, hoping to make clear, we are all about the frequency of love, and we are consistently coherent, and that's why we're also dynamic, because that's what an integrated brain does. So we do tantric journey, delight, allow, and passionately, as empowered couples do, and the empowered individual. So the most important element to the equation of how you view yourself and how others may view, which won't always match this good or bad thing, is number one, having the capacity to be equanimous so that you can be satisfied with how you have enough space and time to present a conversation and to really know, you know what, I don't need to prove me. But that's because you metabolize those emotions and thoughts within yourself, and you don't justify or you don't create a team of good or bad people. You say, I'm dealing with what is something different than what I would want. You stretch that lovely mind of yours. Oliver Wendell Holmes, a mind that is stretched to a new idea never returns to its original dimension. You stretch the mind because your brain is bilaterally integrated. You don't let your inner child lead. As Patrick Tiahan would point out, you're not going to let it lead because you are the inner adult of you now. So you say, let me stay in my prefrontal. I don't want to use my trauma brain. As you get emotional. So you have enough space, if you're mindfully aware, whether spiritual or not, enough space to say, okay, my child part and or parts, however you word it, is coming up. Stuff's coming up. It's stuff from my past. I can breathe and allow myself to not bring it into the room. So the first step is learning how to be in that space and be the inner child, but not let the inner child lead. You're the inner adult who notices what's coming up, that wants to be in the space of, I want to be seen and I want to be soothed and safe and secure to be myself, and you wronged me with no reason except for, okay, so that's I'm going to pause and leave it alone, because again, if that's not easy for you to stand up for yourself and then to put aside the attitude of the inner child, that's why there's Patrick Tiahan or Terry Real. You learn to love yourself first. Once you're able to stand in the presence of somebody without having to interact with them in a way that is rigidity, you're getting practiced in mindset skills, mindfulness practices, and mindset in the moment and in the interaction. And this is actually the mental, emotion, physical mastery that a spiritual person can tell you all about. As an Akashic record reader, we come to master this. It's amazing. So when you embody that which can be considered anima mundi, pure consciousness, because a channeler, a downloader that has the relationship with everything from yesterday's spirituality books to today to what will come in the future, you're not confused. You perceive energy. It is as immediate. The download is here, the word is here, and there you go, and I'm speaking. And that's why we have our mystic community for future retreats and workshops. Once our tiers are out, we'll have that on YouTube. But the mindfulness practices, personal development, self-help, I try to allow myself to organize it so you can understand I'm here for the people who want to pursue inner growth and well-being, but I'm also here as a mystic. So I woo-woo sort of science, bringing the smart scientists that I learned from, bringing the human elements and the spiritual, and we have fun. So the most important element of this I'm good, bad is one, get rid of those because you will want to know, do I have integrity and am I trying to bring something supportive to my herd? I follow the laws. I respect people. I choose to expand my herd. I choose to bring forth something that is of benefit to all, not just some. And that's the part of noticing if you have biases or agendas. That person who will have that, it'll be clear because it'll be rigid and not fun, and it won't be objective. And so again, the practice of being objective is I stand in the middle knowing my thoughts and emotions are not irrefutable facts. I have a differentiated self, which means I subjectively experience life, and anything that comes up in this brain of mine and self is mine and not to be projected as the absolute. The minute you have practiced neutrality and duality, that's the advanced place of the inner growth mindset journey, is when you're now in your prefrontal with awareness of when alert. And you say, nope, prefrontal. I don't need alert. Yeah, I want prefrontal. So now we're in the presence of a person who can be in their prefrontal as somebody is insulting them for no other reason except for, again, they are an adaptive child, unbridled self-expression, make it all about me, whatever it is. Or just a person who's closed off to having an expanded conversation, which is boring. The most important element is this. You want to know, do you have a person in front of you that is bilaterally integrated, a safe person? They own their mind and body, their whole self. They're non-traumatized. They have secure attachment. And yeah, they're in their social engagement nervous system with their prefrontal. You'll know because there's clarity, truth, intelligence in front of you. You won't have an interaction with a person like that where they are insulting you and basically throwing shit. Characterological distinction. The more you have a mature, emotionally, mentally, physically speaking person, the more you will notice the difference. So when you instead meet a person or a mystic, so people who are traumatized, who have non-bilateral integration, they lack self-awareness, they lack the desire to be self-aware as well, and follow people who don't have that. So their past childhood trauma, their biases, their adaptive child part narratives, their behaviors, all of their dysregulation and modulation is leading the way. So people who don't heal their trauma fully and who don't take care to be in the state of self-awareness, attachment, security, secure attachment, okay? So to be am I securely attached? Do I need any support getting my reparenting, learning how to self-soothe in a healthy way? So self-awareness, accountability, and regulation. And secure attachment, if they don't do any of the work seriously, they're not reliable or safe. So their opinion doesn't matter. You got a person who's completely lacking responsibility to get themselves into becoming a equanimous, non-reactive, in their state of connection, functional adult. So the very bare minimum, you gotta, again, a person who thinks they know what it means to be a functional adult, but if they met Terry Real, he would share with them, nope, here's my little graph, and he would give them the graph, and no, I don't know what he would do, but he would definitely be able to spot where they have the grandiosity or the shame and say, okay, healthy self-worth is in the middle. And that's because we all are in the middle, meaning flawed, imperfect, and wanting to share a life of meaning and connection beyond the soul self. So that means to be able and expand mentally, emotionally, and that's together. And so the opinions of people who are not expanding, they're not reliable because the pause self consistently distorts everything due to the brain, the mind, the body being ruled by trauma charges and child parts or parts of fragmented self. So this inner critic, outer critic, monsters in the head, there's so much distortion that happens. So they only see black and white. They see all or nothing narratives and they don't actively take ownership. I'm going to share a story if we have some time at the end. So they know about superheroes and supervillains. Again, there's dividing good and bad groups. They consistently have distorted toxic family storylines and mannerisms that involve shame, blame, fault, and revenge. They're always just pointing fingers, like Diego's family from Ice Age. And they are also distorting based on cultural narratives of yesterday's news and closed-minded, ancient textbook people who don't like that spirituality, it's all of us together, or that sciences and spirituality comes together. They're like, no, and it's like, yeah, sorry, stay in yesterday's news. So biases affect those who allow them to rule with them. Those of us who are aware of them, we don't allow any of our biases to rule us, but we know that we have them. So the use of shame, blame, fault, revenge manners. They also have insecurities from the unowned, distorted, broken self, leading the way with a trauma brain. And therefore, again, they're not safe or reliable people. Their opinion doesn't matter because they're coming in. What matters is that you are equanimous and able to be respectful, because at the very bare minimum, this isn't enough to be saluted, will get reiterated in the very consistent ventral energy. There ain't no shit going on, dude. I'm gonna repeat myself, and there you go. It's done. No escalation. Nobody had to deal with any drama, because that's what happens when you have a securely attached, healthy, self-worth, self-regulating human being in a non-reactive state, which it's biological rudeness. I don't need to deal with their trauma time. What their shame is theirs, not mine. Whatever their insecurities are stem from their first 8 years of life. They're not healed. They have fear of abandonment, rejection. I don't need to add to that. I don't want to. And actually, I don't have to, because I didn't get my feelings hurt. And really, it's because my nervous system didn't get into the defense. So my feelings can be emotionally participating, but the nervous system is what's leading my interaction. And the minute that you're a healthy, self-worth, empowered, securely attached, functional child adult, you ain't going to be dysregulated by a person who's dysregulated. So feelings come up based on our interaction, but the reality is, in our empowering relationships, I'll express my feelings with you. I'll cry in front of you. I'll get angry with you. I'll be able to be very vulnerable. No problemo. I mean, really, that's the whole point of what relationships that are secure. So some people, they actually are afraid and don't want that. I don't have an issue with being completely in all my emotional plane, because otherwise I wouldn't be building a relationship. And so the safe and reliable opinions come from securely attached, functional inner child adults, our lovely 5D collective. And that means integrated brains, the body's state of safety and connection, engaged, and a mindfully living and loving person who owns their mind, bilateral, the body, the heart, and self. And we navigate life with full access to consciousness, intelligence, equanimity, and clarity of the mind. That's why mindfulness mindset and mindset practices, they support you to become more of this. And so the story, this one is actually a recent one, and it's funny because when you're self-aware, accountable, and regulating, in the awareness that others will not necessarily do it. Okay, so I, Maria, am a 3-year-old. As I share with you, I've matured my emotions, my thoughts, thanks to people, right? I bring to you something. I can walk a walk and talk a talk. What I can tell you is that it gets more and more obvious by the day when I'm doing it, when I'm able to implement more equanimity, because obviously I will share a relational field with another person. And as I've also been telling you, the bigger opportunity of stretching our minds further is when we're presented with something that quote unquote throws you off your game. And in this moment, for our lovely 5D collective, all of what's throwing us off our game is amazing. The reality is, it's empowered counterparts that know true love. It's empowering work situations. The 5D collective is on a high. They actively are very aware of what is being allowed to do a dance, because you are not afraid to live alive, because you're not afraid to be yourself. So you don't need somebody to guide you on where you're going. And so by being so self-aware, accountable, and regulating, you know when you're being nudged, as Sadhguru would say, by Akash, or universe, I forget how he calls it. And I'm just going to say by life, the intelligence, as a Reiki master. But yeah, you'll know, hey, there you are. I remember this happened a while back with my exercises. Okay, you need to do more. Come on, move around. Fine. Now I'm getting different types of nudges, so it's fun. So this story is where this individual and I, it's been what? Her and I have been interacting since last summer. And I thought that I had been clear about some things, but this is where it was addressed in a very specific manner that it wasn't made clear. Okay, so I'm going to say, as I'm being told that I didn't make clear what I do for a living, and that they thought I was still doing what I did, and really, this is where I'm like, really? It's been like forever that I've not been doing that alone. I mean, I was still doing what they thought I was doing for some time, but I expanded to become my own online entrepreneur, marketer. You all that follow me know this. So this is the person that's a family friend. So as they're telling me that they were oblivious to me having changed jobs, which isn't the right wording, but I'm just reading and contemplating, and because of being myself empowered, this secure attachment way, the way we're talking, mindfully aware, and also really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not something that I'm like, let me interact with it to correct. You don't correct people because why am I going to correct you? It's like my facade friend. A person who is distorting words is how I'm going to bring it. But then it's like, are they, or maybe it's just my interpretation. So when you're mindfully aware enough and you're empowered, you don't care about proving yourself to anybody. You interact with the complete curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love, which is where COLD, the acronym from Dr. Daniel Siegel, which is why I'm in the present, which is why my prefrontal cortex is online, which is why I'm attuning to the situation, but I'm resonating with Maria's nervous system because I'm trusting, because I'm flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable, all Dr. Daniel Siegel's acronyms, because I'm in an integrated brain, so my default mode network is not scanning to get approval from this human being. I don't give a shit about the approval. I'm interacting with them, and actively they had already given me an opportunity to recalibrate and work with my nervous system as I was engaging in saying no. Okay, so when you say no to somebody you love, that's actually emotionally more like, oh no, I'm gonna struggle with it, but I'm still gonna say no because I know it's the healthy boundaries, and to have a conversation, not an accusation. So I'm getting told by this individual who does lack a specific level of respect, because the adaptive child comes in with unbridled self-expression. They are a closed heart, like my facade friend. They're a teenager on wheels who's a person who needs something from you, and they're going to use their maladaptive patterns with an adaptive child tone, which is what you'll recognize a mile away, as well as their nervous system. And I thank the person for the opportunity every single step of the way to be able to be equanimous. So now I'm in the interaction, as I'm now finding out by being directly told that I miscommunicated. So the accusational tones. This is the other part. It always makes me laugh. Individuals who lack empowerment only know how to shame, blame, fault, and do this. So I laugh because I don't take it personally, because I don't actually feel any blame. But I mean, you can keep using the words. It's your interpretation. I'm going to be exempt from this because your mannerisms are telling me that you don't know how to actually have what I consider and intellectually, in fact, you're not an integrated brain. So you leave it alone when there's lack of self-aware, accountable, regulating people. As Stephen Porges points out, they're biologically rude. They're not choosing on purpose. They're maladaptive patterns, or their adaptive child. They can heal it, yeah, if they go to therapy, not with me. And I'm not going to be lecturing them about a tone because I don't want to. So in the meantime, I'm having the opportunity, once again, to engage in a pleasant interaction because I'm practicing something that I preach. But also, I'm just having a good time. And I'm thinking, you know what? I didn't really specify, and I'm just contemplating the words they chose to use, how they presented to me, their interpretation. And I'm finding it humorous that this distortion took place. And I'm just thinking that it's bullshit at the same time because of a lot of things, which I'm not going to say because it's not point of the story, but I work through how I'm going to answer, and I say, you know what, thank you so much for having clarified something. I didn't realize I wasn't clear about how, and da-da-da-da-da. So you're right, this is what I do, da-da-da-da-da, and thank you so much, and there you go, and now it's resolved. In the meantime, though, like I said, being presented a distorted perspective by a person who I know doesn't have the mental, emotional, or physical maturity because they are a active adaptive child part of themselves, which is any person who's a facade. The facades are all teenage versions. They come in unbridled self-expression, wanting to control it. They aren't looking at what you're saying, and they aren't even thinking of it. So they're actual frontal lobes are flopped down, their amygdala is alerted, and I got a 0 to 8 year old with a story that they began at 2 years of age. I can explain it to you because of the attachment trauma information. I'm not interacting with a person like that, but I do know them, and I've known them for quite some time. So their capacity to make it sound like they're doing me a favor, like they're bringing something in, like I'm the one who dragged them in this. Like this is the part of where it isn't manipulation to an intelligent brain who's an empowered person. It's a humorous buffoonery, which is why when I hear that fancy lady in her fucking seat saying, you have no emotions, it's dangerous, I'm like, wow, you really don't know anything. Oh my gosh, you're missing out so much on life. But then again, you look beautiful in those suits. Keep having a good time for the people who want to look just as good as you do. And I, on the other hand, am having a good time sharing with you this story. So I can thank the person that did all that they did as they continue doing all they do. And just let you know, distortion of the past self. My gosh, there's no Lucifer to be found in any of these people. The worst case scenario breaks my heart because they end up in prison. But you know what the good news is there's good therapists that are in those prisons working with those people. That's the good news. And I know some of them because I learned from them. So what I know is that neuroscience, neurobiology, mental health, and smart human beings know that there's no Lucifer to be found in any person, because that's quite insulting to continue using the name of an individual when we have a bunch of researchers and smart human beings out there explaining it. And if I, as a dumb brain, can understand it by taking courses, you better bet, with the consilience approach, that any human being who's as also smart brain could understand it. They might just not be listening with those open ears. And I have met those people in my classes. When somebody's asking a smart human being about a shortcut for integration when there are none, and it's like a mathematical equation, I'm brought back to high school when I asked for homework on a Friday evening and the entire class booed me, and I didn't give two shits about it because I'm thinking, what are you doing with 24 hours? Don't you want to learn things? Are you using your brain and mind and day to do what? Don't you have plans for the future, college, I don't know, work, contribute to him? Are you not going to do any? This is me as a teenager. And you can only imagine, again, as a grown-up, as I got to college, finding out people fucking and being miserable, and like, okay, that's not really, huh? So no, it's not the level of education that makes you become a person that has intelligence, but you better bet that it's not in the absence of colleges and degrees. No, because we've got a bunch of ignorant people who are completely subject to ignorance, and that's really sad. And so they still believe that demons exist, versus the neuroscientists like Patrick McNamara, who explains no demon, and the people have nightmare after nightmare after nightmare, or Bezel van der Kolk or Stephen Porges, or again, all the smart therapists who talk to us, Dr. Daniel Siegel, about dissociation and dissociation identity disorder and disorganized attachment, the therapists who don't believe in their colleagues. So when there's explanations to help people heal, and you have a group of them who don't believe in science as well, I think of the flat earthers, and then I hear their argumentation. They're not making very good arguments at all. Now, they're making very not great interactive arguments. They have stories for you, and they use ancient textbooks, and then they just say that lack of imagination for evil. That was hilarious by beyond all means. Is I'm thinking of Michael Stone, forensic criminologist, who gives us a scale that makes a lot of sense to smart brain, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing? But then I also notice the spiritual bypassers. And they're just as uninteresting but humorous as the not true scientist people who say there's never been a medium ever. Anytime you meet an arrogant ego, you're going to notice it, because that's what teenagers do. They don't actually own the information because they don't embody it, because they're not using two sides of the brain. When you only use the left, you're trying to understand something. When you're using left and right, you're not just trying. You're actually exploring, sensing, feeling, and then you're putting it into practice because you're allowing yourself to walk and to do it for real. I'm going to break it down, but enough of that. So shared a story, shared a little bit, remembering who you're interacting with, but first of all, knowing if you are emotionally, mentally, and physically secure and able to have ownership. So my instance of conversation, I'm not offended. It's a family friend. They're saying a family friend. I'm humored. And then I'm contemplative, and I contemplate in this way. Did I specify what I did with it? No, not really. But if I really wanted to be picky about it, which some people do, go back and see all my conversation. No, dang, I don't need that. But you better bet that an insecure human being, which would be the same kind of teenager as that person, would probably go about their business trying to outline everything that they had said, not said, just so that they could have a little sword fight. And that's all in a body in this, which is completely consuming in no interesting way whatsoever, by the way. Because that's all people who need Patrick Tian and Terry Real so that they could grow the fuck up and just allow themselves to know that we all can miscommunicate. That's why we don't make it into a sword fight that is one that's uncomfortable. We make it into a dance. We make it into something that allows us to go from what would be a disharmony, if you will, to a harmony. But really, we also learn our language. So grown ups, securely attached people, learn each other's language. And in time, they will allow themselves to keep it in mind because that's how it works. We not expect us all to think in ones and twos and threes. Okay, so you are able to become, as you stretch that lovely mind. I don't know if I read it, but I'm going to read it again, even if I did. A mind that is stretched to a new idea never returns to its original dimension. Oliver Wendell Holmes. As you use your left and right together, you will have a good time. This is why I gave you the story. And you also, with the heart and the gut, have a good time because you're an empowered human being. So it's not something you're really into. Let me go and figure out, did I do it right or wrong? And I don't give a shit if I did it right or wrong. It's not my question is not that. I'm exploring what I was presented by the person in that moment. I'm actually calm about it, which is the good thing. And that's the one thing about, one, your circle of loved ones, but two, it's in close quarters that becomes and is a lot more where we can use mindfulness mindset practices, and a Terry Real who talks to us all about relational mindfulness, because the reality is what story was presented is really straightforward for me because it's on not a consistent interaction, right? So when we're instead needing to negotiate something a little bit more serious, that's the part. Well, to be continued, not in today's episode. Thanks for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. Have a good one.